Welcome back, you guys. I'm Nini FC, this is Blue Lions CV, and welcome to the player ratings video after that big win against Arsenal earlier today. Now, I'm sure you guys are still feeling pumped, still feeling excited. For the player ratings, I'll be doing things a bit differently. I'll be starting with the manager and the substitutes before I work my way down with the first team. But before I even get into any of that, you guys, of course, if you're still feeling excited, if your Christmas was good, if you're happy with the win, smash that like button. Help me get over 1,500 likes. And on that note, we start with Frank Lampard. And when the game first started, I saw the 3-4-3 and I was feeling quite nervous. I wasn't feeling too confident. I didn't think this was the right game plan against Arsenal, and I'm happy that Lampard identified the issues and the weaknesses and he modified them and made changes very quickly. Instant. When I was watching the game and with how poor we were playing and everything was down to the tactical setup and the players not being prepared for it, I was hoping Lampard was going to make an immediate change, and he did that in the 30th minute by bringing on JORGINHO, and that effectively was the catalyst that lit the fire. From then on, he introduced Lamptey and Hudson-Odoi. He relied on the young players, he relied on players that were going to benefit the team because he was going for all 3 points. That's what I want to see from Frank Lampard. He produced that today. He turned things around amazingly. He got the team pumped and the spirit ready for the second half. This is why I believe in Frank Lampard. He's a top class manager in the making. Lampard is going to get an 8.5 out of 10. Now, we move on to JORGINHO, and for me, I'd say he was the man of the match. He came on and he completely transformed the game. Now, this was always going to be obvious because we missed that guy that was going to connect the defence to the midfield. We were missing a man in that area, and we know that's JORGINHO's role. That's what he made his name on. When he came in the game, he just really revamped how we played. The midfield players in Kante and Kovacic were able to make runs off him and support the attack further up. We were then able to pin Arsenal's fullbacks deep in their own half and push our fullbacks further up. But on top of that, you guys, it was JORGINHO's mentality. Complete captain's mentality. A typical Italian performance in that sense. He showed a bit of the dark arts, but sometimes you need that. I feel like we can be a bit too nice at times and we can have a tendency to get bullied at times. So it's good that JORGINHO came on and he knew what to do against Arsenal because Arsenal falter under pressure and they don't like intensity. JORGINHO really transformed this game. Excellent performance. He's going to score an 8.5 out of 10. Now we move on to Callum Hudson-Odoi, and honestly, I was so impressed with his introduction in the game. He came on and he made things happen. He was linking up with the fullbacks out wide and Mason Mount, finding people with this playmaking abilities, the switch balls in behind, cutting inside, drawing men towards him, creating space. It's what you want to see. Now, of course, we didn't see any of his trademark skills other than one incredible little back heel flick that he did back to Willian. But I'm hoping that's the start of Callum getting ready to express himself a bit more. Regardless though, even though the source wasn't there every single time, he was professional, he was comfortable, and he looked quite confident. Hudson-Odoi is going to score a 7 out of 10. Now we move on to young Tariq Lamptey, and I was really surprised to see him in the first team, but it was the right call, and it's great to know that Lampard liaises with his assistant managers and also that he has faith in the player. Now, Lamptey has a lot of interest from a lot of clubs throughout Europe, so maybe it wasn't a surprise that he did have some involvement in today's game. His contract is nearly up and Paris Saint-Germain do have an offer on the table to try and sign the player. Regardless though, just focus on the player's performance. He was confident, he looked good. That run he went on when he played Tammy Abraham in behind, that's what I want to see from a young player. He kept the intensity of the team up, he did not look like a weakness. Great to see. We've got so much talent at this club, it's ridiculous. He's going to score a 7 out of 10. Now we move on to the first thing, you guys, and I'll be starting with Tammy Abraham up front. And Tammy really grew into this game as things went on. With Tammy, of course, it was natural that he was going to struggle because there was no link-up play with him. There was no support anywhere around him as well. And he was quite isolated for large figures of the game today. But when JORGINHO came on, when Lampard started to add more substitutes to the game that changed the game tactically in our favour, when we were able to start pinning Arsenal in their half and controlling the game in their final third, well, that's when we could see other elements of Tammy's game. Now, he wasn't quiet for no reason. What happened was that we weren't fully utilising the striker. In that second half period, Tammy was able to utilise his runs in behind, his movement, and that was how he got his goals in the end. He never got his goals from like a long ball from deep, where he has to act like Drogba, chest the ball down and then make something happen out of nothing. Tammy came to light when the team came to light, and that's the best type of striker, you guys. You know, you want a striker that's going to complement the team's setup, and the fact that Tammy came alive and things became more natural is a great sign to see. Tammy Abraham is going to score a 7 out of 10. Now we move on to Willian, an unsung hero, and I feel a player that people are reluctant to want to give praise to, even though this season he's been good. But in today's game, Willian played 7 key passes. Now the closest player to him was Mesut Ozil, who only played 2 passes. Willian was influential, and his influence in games is just being ignored too much. You know, sometimes in football, let's look at everything the player's doing instead of 1 or 2 parts of their game. Willian, I thought, came alive even more when he had Lamptey alongside him down that right hand side. You know, his movement in behind, his work rate, his intensity, the skill. He was making things happen every single time. It was a great performance to see. Willian is going to score a 7.5 out of 10. Now we move on to Mason Mount, and Mason Mount was quite similar to Tammy Abraham. We know that Mason prefers to play closer towards him, and Mason wasn't able to do that because the game just wasn't really working in the first half, because the gaps and distances were too big in this 3-4-3, and actually the attacking players couldn't influence the game as much. But in the second half, things were a completely different story. Mason Mount came alive due to having more options and support around him. I thought his use of the ball in the final third, how he helped pin Arsenal's fullback deep in their half, was excellent. You know, shots on goal, and of course, let's not forget the excellent assist from the corner that got the equaliser. Great ball in. It's why Lampard has faith in the player. Mason Mount is going to score a 7 out of 10. Now we move on to the midfield, starting with Mateo Kovacic. Now, I've got to say, it was one of his weakest games this season. At times, he did show us some decent defensive play, you know, getting stuck in his 50-50 battles and obviously showing intensity and working for the team. But in today's game, Kova's use of the ball was not fully on point. He was not finding men between the lines. He was not finding the right passing options every single time. And it must be frustrating sometimes for guys like Mount and Willian, especially Mason Mount, who is in areas but then never gets found. I've got my thoughts on that, but I'll keep that for another time. Getting back to Kova though, you know, I was expecting more today and it just really wasn't his game. Kova is going to score a 5.5 out of 10. Now we move on to N'Golo Kante. Offensively, Kante was kind of mediocre, suffering with the same issues that Kovacic did in terms of his final passes and, you know, balls in the final third, not always finding their man. But when it came to his defensive output today, it was a completely different story, you guys. His intensity, the interceptions, the tackles. I lost count of how many key tackles he made in Arsenal's third that kick-started counter-attacks for us. It happened time and time again, and it's exactly why Kante has to play in this role. You know, if you imagine playing Kante as a DM and just sacrificing all the other great aspects of his game, it doesn't make any sense to me, you guys. Kante today was a defensive king, and he just doesn't really have any bad games. Kante is going to score a 7 out of 10. Now we move on to Azpilicueta at right back, and you know, Azpi today had a game on his hands. I thought he looked very comfortable in a sense and quite professional. I think he really came to light more in the second half when he played as a left back. I was surprised with how decent his contribution was in the final third. He was a passing outlet every single time. He got tight. He was tucking in midfield to become a passing outlet as well. And you know, when he plays on a stronger foot like that, I guess he feels more confident. But you know, today, you know, he was professional. Azpilicueta is going to score a 6.5 out of 10. Now we move on to Emerson, and today it really was a day to forget for Emerson. Now, when he got subbed off, it wasn't because he was completely awful that Lampard was forced to take him off. It was for tactical reasons, because we needed Jorginho in the game, and either one of Azpi or Emerson was naturally going to get sacrificed. But regardless, from a tactical point of view, it was very hard for both wing-backs today, because Arsenal's game plan was based on engaging with our wing-backs and stopping them from playing. So we have to have some sympathy in that respect, because of course the players weren't set out in the right tactical setup in the first place to begin with. But regardless though, you'd hope that his concentration would be there a bit. For the goal that we can see at the start, You could say it's Emerson's fault. I feel like it was a collective effort because Callum Chambers gets the first header and that's like the first mistake for me. But still though, you know, Emerson not really being too involved could that have affected his concentration, completely left Aubameyang in behind, and in that sense he had to be sacrificed to help benefit the team. Emerson is going to score a 5 out of 10. Now, we move on to Fikayo Tomori, and this was an interesting game for him today. I bet he didn't expect to play as a right back in this game, or maybe he did. Maybe he did, you guys. Maybe the team were like, listen, if this 3-4-3 doesn't work at the start, here's what the game plan's going to be, you guys, because the players look very settled quite quickly the minute Jorginho came on. So maybe there could be more to that. But regardless, Tomori didn't get to show what he's really about in that sense. He's not the best right back. It was funny actually watching him play right back sometimes because he was really like kick and run in that sense. But what can he do? He was much better defensively, and really it's quite hard to give him a score. Tomori is going to get a standard 6 out of 10. Now we move on to Rudiger in defence, and Rudiger was very combative today. And sometimes that's an element that you need in the game, especially against an Arsenal team that have those mental frailties. For me though, at times, I think Rudiger isn't like defensive king in the sense that he is prone to mistakes. And Arsenal's game plan in the start was to attack down the right hand side. And they did that because they wanted to catch Rudiger out of position by having Lacazette dropping deeper from like the right hand side channel where Rudiger's forced to have to follow him. And then Arsenal would use the pacing behind those areas. There's a reason why they didn't do that down the left-hand side, you guys, all through the middle. But regardless, even though there were a few iffy moments at times, it was still overall a generally decent defensive performance. So Rudiger is going to score a 6.5 out of 10. Now to complete the defense, we move on to King Kazuma. For me, he was our best defender. I keep reimagining that moment in the second half where he had like 4 or 5, defensive responsibilities to just handle instantly, and it was just excellent defending in such a short amount of time. And I feel that time Zuma doesn't get enough credit for some reason. It feels like he's a player that people feel reluctant to want to praise. Defensively, out of any defender we have, he is the best one, and that's why Lampard plays him in the middle, because Zuma plays that cover role. And to play that cover role means that your reading of the game has to be very good, and of course your defending has to be even better. For me, Zuma is going to score a 7 out of 10. And to end this entire video, we move on to the final player to review, and that's Kepa in goal. Now I know some people may feel that maybe Kepa should have done more for the first goal. That's a bit harsh in my opinion. There were two decisive moments before the ball went in the back of the net, and that had nothing to do with Kepa. After that though, I thought he looked quite confident, he looked quite comfortable, he looked physical when it came to defending set pieces, and some of his passing was a lot better today. Kepa was decent, and for that reason, Kepa is going to score a 6.5 out of 10. And on that note, you guys, I'm going to wrap things up and keep things moving. Thank you for watching. Don't forget, I have released a match review, which you can find in the card above. If you want to hear more insight and more thoughts from after the game, I suggest you watch that, you guys. And on that note, I'm going to wrap things up and keep things moving. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe. I'm Nini FC. This is Blue Lions CV. See you man in a bit.